Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Andrew Yang and Andrew Yang's role as a son. All right, so Andrew Yang has an identified father, and he serves in the role as son. So he has a father, he is a son. Today we're going to talk pretty much about the dynamic that exists, in my opinion, at the macro level between fathers and sons, and generally. At the macro level, I believe sons have a desire to surpass their fathers. And I think this is really critical to understanding Andrew Yang. It's critical to understanding the role of a son at the macro level. There are certainly exceptions to everything we're going to talk about today. But at the macro level, I think there's a dynamic where sons desire to surpass their fathers. And today I want to talk about three sets of fathers and sons, and I think this is going to give us a deeper understanding of Andrew Yang and why he is running for president. All right, now today I'm going to talk about Andrew Yang's motivation for running as president, which is actually quite personal. One of the things that gets strange when you run for president is a lot of things that are personal become very public. But I want to be really clear. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to talk about a feather on the bird. All right, so I'm going to give you my opinion on what motivates, on one of the aspects that motivates Andrew Yang to run for president, okay? But I want to be super clear. So basically, when you look at a bird, right, a feather is not the bird. A feather is not even the most of the bird, and a feather isn't even the most important part of a bird, right? And so that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about a feather on the bird. This is, in my opinion, what it is part of his motivation for running for president. Not most of it, and not even the most important part, right? But the reason why I want to talk about it is I have a strong desire to have a really deep understanding of Andrew Yang as a person, because I believe he's a historical figure at this point, and I think he is historically epic in American history, and we need to understand him psychologically, physiologically, economically, historically, and this is an attempt to continue to do that. All right, so let's talk about this. All right, so first I'm going to talk about three sets of fathers and sons. First, my father and me as a son. Second, Tony Hawk and his son Riley Hawk, and then last, Andrew Yang's father and Andrew Yang. All right. So my father, he's an amazing father. I'm really blessed to have my father. I've learned a ton of things from my dad, but almost none of them were from what he told me. It was just mostly what he did, right? So I remember when I went to college, I realized, one of the things about my father. My roommate, I think it was one of my friends in college, said, I remember him saying, "Oh man, I'm really sick today. Well, I feel bad for those, he's like, feel bad for those people at Dracomo's Pizza. There's going to be a lot of orders today." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, I'm going to take a sick day, dude." And I'm like, what do you mean?" And he was like, "I'm sick, so I'm not going to work." And I was like, that's not how that works. Right? And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, my dad, there's no such thing as a sick day, right? And I had never in 18 years of my life, I'd see my dad go to work every day. Like the concept of sick day did not even exist in my head. Like it was, my dad worked very, very hard and provided richly for our family. And I learned from my dad just from watching him. You excel at what you do. You work incredibly hard at what you do. You surpass the people around you. And for my dad, sick days weren't even a concept. I didn't even learn what a sick day was until I went to college, because I had never seen one in my life. So, all right. The other thing about my dad is, as far as surpassing, right? So I remember the first time I surpassed my father. He taught me how to play chess. And we were playing for about 2 or 3 years. He taught me when I was 11. And I remember when I turned 13, I beat my father in chess for the first time. And I think it surprised him. I think he knew it was coming, right? But I think he thought it would be another year or two, right? I think we played chess for about 2 years before I beat my dad. And when I did, he was torqued, right? He was very kind, he was respectful, he didn't do anything, terrible or anything, but I could just tell from his demeanor he was not happy, right? So fathers do not generally, here's the thing, I think at the macro, great fathers want their sons to surpass them, right? Now, I'm not sure if my dad wants me to surpass him or if I've ever surpassed him in anything other than chess, only because my dad, he doesn't really, he's very kind of plays things close to the vest. We don't talk a lot, but he's incredibly, he's an incredibly loving father, and he's an amazing grandfather. And, it's just how our dynamic is. But I will tell you right now, I do everything I can to surpass my father. So my father had 2 kids. I have 4 kids, right? My father, he encouraged me to go to college. I went to college. I do everything I can to get my remunerations for my occupation as high as I can, and I'm always driving to surpass my father, right? So I think this, at the macro level, this is a thing. Sons want to surpass fathers. Let's talk about Tony Hawk and Riley Hawk, right? Because that's where the understanding of Yang unfolds, okay? All right. Tony Hawk is the number 1 action athlete in the world. He is the best, he is the most iconic, most epic skateboarder ever to have lived on this planet. There's no exceptions, right? All right, and basically he's 50 years old at this point, right? And recently I saw a piece that talked about a photo of Tony Hawk, and Tony Hawk talked about this photo and then talked about a second photo of his son, Riley Hawk. Tony Hawk's son, Riley Hawk, is a professional skateboarder, exactly like Tony Hawk, okay? There's some differences, but from that shape, they're the same, okay? All right. In 1987, Tony Hawk was 18 years old, and there is an iconic picture. It was in Thrasher magazine. There's an iconic picture of Tony Hawk, and it is a picture of him jetting under a San Diego drainage ditch pipe. The pipe is very large, it's like 2 feet thick, and it is suspended 8 feet above the ground. Now, in this picture, the drainage ditch pipe is above Tony Hawk's head, and he's using like the sides of the drainage ditch, almost the way you would use a half pipe, right? And going back and forth and doing tricks. And this iconic picture of Tony Hawk underneath this San Diego drainage ditch pipe has Tony Hawk scrunched. He's hunched down over the board, and he has his forward left arm, pointing straight out like a spear. It's an iconic black and white photo. It shows Tony Hawk doing what he does best, and it shows him in Cali, right? It's an amazing photo. Tony Hawk shows this photo in the piece I was watching, and then he shows another photo, right? And the second photo is a photo of his son, Riley Hawk. So Riley Hawk went to this same drainage ditch. So Tony Hawk, his picture was in 1987, okay? 30 years later, in 2017, Riley Hawk goes to the same San Diego drainage ditch pipe, and he takes a photo there. But Tony Hawk's son does not go under the drainage ditch pipe. He uses the sides of the drainage ditch to leap on top of the pipe and ride the length of the pipe 8 feet above concrete. If he had fallen, his ankles would have snapped like twigs, right? And he does this epic ride over the drainage ditch pipe that his father had and this iconic photo of him going under, right? And when I saw this, I was like, holy cows. Riley Hawk subconsciously is trying to go over his father. He's literally going over the pipe, not under it. Riley Hawk is refusing to make the same picture, right? And the reason why is he doesn't want to be where his dad is at. He wants to surpass his father, right? So there's this drive, I think, at the macro level where sons wish to surpass their father, right? And so we see these two iconic pictures, Tony Hawk, Riley Hawk. Tony Hawk goes under the drainage ditch pipe. Riley Hawk, his son, goes over the drainage ditch pipe, right? Let's talk about Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang's father is epic. He is a Taiwanese immigrant. Andrew Yang's father rolls up from Taiwan, right? Comes over here. English is his second language. He's ESL. English is his second language, right? Comes from Taiwan, goes to America. This will blow your mind. What does he do when he gets to America? He gets a PhD, a doctorate in physics, right? He then takes his doctorate in physics and hires on with IBM and General Electric. He's now hired on with world-class, electronics companies, and he creates 69 patents. 69 patents. All right. Andrew Yang's dad is a Taiwanese immigrant who spanned the world to make a new home in a place where he did not speak the language, became a doctor in physics, and then went to work for IBM and GE and made 69 patents. How on earth do you go over that drainage ditch pipe? The only way you surpass a Taiwanese immigrant who comes to America with English as their second language, works for world-class electronics firms, and makes 69 patents, is to run for president. Andrew Yang's running for president is the same as Riley Hawk's going over the San Diego drainage ditch pipe, right? Andrew Yang is a son. He has a desire to surpass his father, but his father's so epic that, frankly, I think the only thing you could do to surpass your Taiwanese immigrant father, who's a physics doctor, right, is to become president, right? So that's what you're seeing, right? Andrew Yang is doing, an alley-oop up to the drainage ditch pipe, riding along that axis and dropping down on the other side. He refuses to go under the drainage ditch. He is going to go over the drainage ditch. Andrew Yang refuses to go under the drainage ditch. He demands to go over the drainage ditch. And just like I think every son at the macro level, he wants to surpass his father. And it's a big part of understanding why Andrew Yang is doing what he's doing. First and foremost, I think the number one reason that Andrew Yang wants to be president is he wants to help every single American. He wants to protect Americans from poverty with the freedom dividend, $1,000 a month for every single adult American. He wants to protect Americans from the ravages of automation, which have already begun within this nation. All right, that is his number one reason for running for president. But without a doubt, in my mind, Andrew Yang also definitely wishes to surpass his father. I think it's in the mix. I think it's part of understanding who and why and what he is. It makes me excited about his candidacy. I want to follow a guy that's going to go over the San Diego drainage ditch pipe, not under it, right? He's truly an amazing person. He's world class. I'm so excited for this election, and I am super, super excited for the 14-day, for what we're going to see in 14 days, which is the October 15th, Ohio. Right, which is what we're gonna see, which is the Ohio CNN New York Times debate 4. Get hyped, we're getting there. All right, that is everything I have for you today. Thank you very much for taking the time to let me share my thoughts with you today. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.